Welcome back to our conversation with Don Russel, candidate for South Portland City Council. Don, there's been a lot of debate over the past couple of years about where City Hall should be located, what financial resources should be dedicated. Could you talk about that a little bit?
It is one of the top 5 questions, I think, probably that I've been getting recently. Let me try to be clear on my position. I do not believe that 100 Waterman Drive is the best location for a new City Hall. I also think that any renovation or potential relocation of City Hall is not a high priority at this time. I think we've got some much more important issues, including South Portland High School, which I know we're going to be talking about. I was on the planning board at the time that 100 Waterman Drive was approved, and the intent, and I think that's such an important word in planning, in city planning, and the intent of 100 Waterman Drive was as professional A+ space. And I think that should still be our goal. I understand we've had, a huge recession in this country and an economic downturn that certainly affected our downtown waterfront district. It did even before the recession when the bridge transition and bridge closure happened. But I think that we need critical mass and more people in the downtown area. Instead of shifting people from City Hall to 100 Waterman, let's get the type of businesses that we really intend to want to attract in there and add to the downtown business environment.
What do you think the city should do with the Armory?
Well, as you might have been reading with some of the headlines recently, and I was certainly part of the planning board during this as well, we tried and we did attract some local business people who were interested in having it become a soundstage, as well as a cookery, if you will, of things like this, local video production and commercials and what have you. It certainly, I think, in terms of intention, again, was a good idea. It appears that the negotiations and being able to renovate the Armory to that point, to be able to work out an agreement might not happen, the last that I have heard on that. So we've got to go a bit back to the drawing board and find out exactly what is the best position for the Armory. I don't think, especially from a traffic safety standpoint alone, having seen some of those studies, that City Hall, potentially, eventually, a new City Hall at the Armory is the best position. Even though it's a signature key place right off the bridge from a location standpoint, frankly, Mahoney potentially would just from a traffic safety and in and out standpoint, be better potentially as a City Hall. So options are wide open, I think, again, for the Armory, including a theater or some other creative mechanism. We have SMCC that is flourishing right now that we should be partnering with when and where we can in some of these assets potentially. And I certainly would hope, if elected, to explore all options, because I think we're at that point in the city's history where, whether it's new revenue or cost containments or what to do with some of these great signature assets we have, all options on the table. Let's have some discussions.
Okay. Probably the most polarizing, or certainly the most visible issue on the ballot in November is the bond referendum for the renovation of the high school. Could you talk a little bit briefly about your position and your thoughts on that?
You said briefly.
I did.
Don Russel talked briefly. Those that know me know I've been party to 7-hour planning board meetings. Very, very important issue, but probably a bit of a complicated answer, but I'll try to be brief. I do favor the bond at $41.5 million. I will be voting for it. I support the bond. The plan itself is about $47 million in change. As you know, in 2007, we lost the bond at $56 million by a wide margin. I believe the critical need for public education and our signature asset of the high school to be attended to overrides some of the differences that I've had with the plan and the plan process. Is it a perfect plan? No. But the plan is, in my opinion, good enough. And if we're erring here, let's err on the side of public education and on making some progress. Because as you might know, I am very concerned about the timing and in some consultation with the school board and with their facilities committee, did recommend that I thought it was very important to come out winning the next vote, and I am concerned about this vote in November, but I will be voting for it, and I think I have, as others do, ample rationale to support why we should vote for it. And I do hope it wins. I am concerned about it winning. It's one of the reasons, Andy, that I strongly recommend, and some others are going to be joining me on this, to set up some type of approved exit polling on November 2nd that will allow us to gain much more important data on the no votes, because if it is a loss, again, we need to have more information directly from the voters on how and when we can quickly come back, because I want the bond to pass, and I want it to pass as soon as possible, but we need to be prepared potentially for a loss and then be able to repivot quickly.
One of the debate points that came up during the discussion of the high school bond was construction management. I think a lot of us are confused by that. Could you talk about that briefly?
I'll try. It's really an accounting management practice that there's design, bid, and build, and there's construction management. The experts that I trust have told me that construction management, which has been used on many a school project, is really the way to go as a best practice. And it will save us money. That's the good news. The bad news is unfortunately, as people know, the way our state works sometimes, it's easier said than done. There was a window, if you will, of opportunity to be able to apply for construction management. And we're not getting any state aid on the high school, but we still need their approval, especially for construction management. We'd also need local approval too from our city council to change some charters around to be able to allow that to happen. To make a long story short, that window closed. And to some of us, including me, there is certainly a source of frustration on how did we let that happen? Why did we let that happen? I don't think it's overly productive to point fingers at the superintendent or the central office or the school board or city hall or city manager or city council or any of the potential players in that. What's more important is two things, in my opinion. One is we need to immediately see if we can create an exemption through Augusta to try to be able to get construction management back into the South Portland High School plan when it's approved, to be able to allow us what we feel would be significant cost savings, which helps voters, helps the project. It's good for South Portland. Secondly, which is much more long-term, we need to try to better understand how the school board and the city council function within processing these types of facility planning goals. I am of the belief that there are some redundancies within the school budget that I think potentially the city council should be taking control over. I would much prefer the school board and the superintendent's office to focus on hiring great teachers, quality of learning, getting our test scores and our rankers up there, having not 10 kids potentially being able to get into Ivy League schools, but 20 or 30. That would be a great goal. Let's have maybe the city focus more on some of the transportation or facilities management, maybe park and rec through maintenance, on some of those issues and portions of the school budget that I think might be better served to be focused on by the city. Either way, more collaboration for sure between city council and school board before we get to the 11th hour on some of these votes and some of the review and assessment of plans.